Well, today we are with Saskia Brunstein. Her career for me has always been an inspiration. And I remember the first time I met her in London. We were in JP Morgan in a wonderful conference room. And then she was talking to me about social impact businesses doing adding social value at the same time that you can have a return. And she was there with Professor Yunus. And then I just rushed to her and say, why are you here? How is it you come to here? So I got to know that you were working for Boston Consulting Group as a senior. So you were having such a brilliant career, but you decided, and probably you can tell us a little bit more about it, and Yunus changed your life, that you really wanted to do something more than working in a traditional career in businesses. So I also got to know that you were at the beginning working in Grameen Lab. So tell us a little bit of how did you co-found together with Professor Yunus Social Business?
Absolutely. And Maria, so great to be here and to see you again. It's been a while and it's always great to have you and all of your positive energy. So really excited to share this panel with you here today. So I mean, I guess my path is relatively straightforward. I just had a very normal business and economics background. I come from a German Canadian family, so I had a little bit of an international outlook, but definitely, was just always interested in the world. And I started my career in a classical consulting company because also I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and that was one way to find out about business, and that was obviously what I had learned in university. Makes the world go round. And so from that perspective, I just figured let me try out where there are specialists in business and let me learn and get an overview. And that's how consulting came to me. But then after a couple of years, actually did ask myself, how long did I want to do this, and how was that serving, let's say, the world more broadly? And I think that's when I went onto my exploration trip. Asked myself, what did I want to do in my life and how could I use my business skills? And that's really where I then found the whole idea of social business. So business to do good to the world and to do good for the planet. And that really has that intention rather than the typical business intention, which is just to make money for us as shareholders. And so that really fascinated me. And obviously, Mohamed Yunus, the microcredit pioneer that some of you may know, who won the Peace Nobel Prize now over, 10, 12 years ago, was of course an inspirational speaker, and he convinced me quite easily. And now 10 years ago, we co-founded Yunus Social Business together. What we do at Yunus Social Business is, on the one hand, we lend, we give loans to social businesses in emerging countries, in low-income countries, with the intention to solve poverty problems, and now also more and more climate change problems, through a business approach. And then on the other hand, we have a consulting arm where we help global corporations to apply those principles of social business to their core business as well. So those are the two sides. I hope that helps a little bit by way of introducing.
It helps a lot, and it helped me to launch or relaunch Open Value Foundation with this more business center, maybe a scope. So my next question to you, if it is, when we talk about social businesses, it is very important, or it is a must, that they thrive as a business more than the social side, or both, or how is the way that you see that?
Well, the way I always see it is, the problem I want to focus, that is my goal. So that's the end. Business is the tool to get there. Whereas normally business in itself, like the normal sort of, let's say, economist model is business, the business of business is business. So it's all about profit maximization for shareholders. And in my case, or in our case as social business entrepreneurs, we look at it differently. We start at the problem, and then we find a business model that can solve the problem. So now, but we need to be also clear, only if we actually have a business model can we really solve the problem. So without a good business model, you also can't solve the problem in the long run, because otherwise you end up still being back in the normal charity model. So that's not a sustainable solution for a problem in the long run. So in other words, like, what's more important it is very clear that you need to have a clear target that you're trying to solve. But the business model itself, and that needs to be eventually profitable, is the essential motor to be able to solve that problem. So in some ways, both of them are as important to really make a social business successful and to really create a long-term sustainable problem-solving machine.
Okay, so I got it. And there is another thing that I'm thinking a lot now, and it's these businesses that already has a social purpose, but they didn't know really, or they didn't get started with this social problem, but they already have it. I guess that you also try to find this kind of businesses, especially in the developing world. Most of them are.
Yeah, and I think you're probably also referring to sort of that whole like self-definition of a social entrepreneur. I think perhaps also to share, like there's that broader concept of social entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurs. And that is often seen in a much more broad way, in the sense that somebody that has an innovative NGO model would also be seen as a social entrepreneur. When we're talking about social business, we're really talking about companies that have a social goal but work as businesses. And indeed, not all of them that solve social problems would already identify themselves as social business entrepreneurs, because indeed in many developing or emerging or low-income countries, whatever you want to call it, the business opportunities that present themselves may also solve significant social or environmental problems. So for us, I think we would definitely also try and find those that are not self-identified and not those that are actually winning prizes left and right. But what is important for us is that they do have an intention to solve a problem, that they don't just like do that just by chance, but that they actually do want it. And that is also in part their driver. The reason why I'm saying that is somebody that doesn't have the intention to solve a problem and the problem solving is just a byproduct. Let's say they may change their business model the moment when there is a new solution, and suddenly the social impact may also go away. So in some ways, the motivation of the entrepreneur does play a role, where what is not important is if the entrepreneur actually calls themselves a social entrepreneur or not, but the intentions why they're doing that is for me important.
Cool. And there is the question that keep me awake at night, and I think we share the same problem. It's that we are trying to find businesses that have a very huge social mission. At the same time, they're sustainable. And me, myself, in my foundation, I'm still struggling on how to make it sustainable. So what is the model of Juno's social business towards sustainability?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because, and then that's also one of the principles that we've set ourselves. We are investing in social businesses. We want them to be financially self-sustainable next to mainly solving the problem, but we should be financially self-sustainable ourselves. And the way that it works is we actually, sorry, it's a door ringing. I hope that's not too loud. And the way that we do it is we actually provide loans to social businesses that have an interest rate. And through the interest rate that we take from the social businesses, we are able to cover the costs of our local teams that identify the social businesses, that do the due diligence on them, and then that also later on support them. So that is really our business model. And actually in 3 out of our 5 countries, we are now at break even. So we're able to cover our local costs through this approach. And in 2 countries, we will get there in the next 2 years. So we're getting very close to that. So that's really the business model, how we're also managing that. But it took us a long time to get to this point, and I'm really happy to say that we are finally very, very close of making that sustainability. But it's hard because we've decided explicitly to invest in more earlier stage and growth stage companies, and actually give smaller loans, so between 100,000 and 500,000, but mainly really around 250,000 to individual companies. And that is just not a very profitable, quote unquote, segment, because it's a lot of work to do a due diligence on a company to whom we only lend 250K, compared to if we lend $1 million to that same company. We have the same costs, and often actually even more, because these companies are way less, let's say, developed in terms of their financial systems. So we've chosen that particular segment because that is the so-called missing middle, where companies often do not have access to other types of funding. And we felt that, especially with our philanthropic background, that's the gap that we want to fill. So we're basically exactly edging between our own financial self-sustainability and at the same time the very, very strong impact first or impact only approach that we've been taking at Unisocial Business.
Okay, I fully understand what you said. And now I want to make two questions together, because we really wanted to know how was your feeling about your learnings from the developing world. How can we transfer it to Spain or even to Germany? And I think the way you're doing it is learning from social entrepreneurs in the developing world and transforming people working in corporates into corporate entrepreneurs. Can you tell us a little bit more, or how do you apply all these learnings at the transformation capabilities of these people inside their corporations and then traditional economies?
Absolutely. I think that's a really, really important point that you're bringing up there, and one that is very sort of dear to our heart and relevant for our like overarching theory of change, which is that over the years, we also realized that if we really want to change the economy, it's not going to be enough that we just focus on a small subset of social businesses and help them grow. Currently, to give you a little bit of a feeling, we currently have in our active portfolio over 50 social business companies, which is a lot for us, but it's also not a lot if you think about the overall economy. And so in some ways, the social businesses, let's say as part of the global economy, they make up a very small part at this stage. They're still in a niche compared to the main part of the economy. So our role is, on the one hand, to make that niche bigger and grow that niche, but at the same time, we also need to take the mainstream economy and change that and make sure that that part of the economy gets closer to that niche that I just mentioned. And for that, and that's why we've been saying that our role as consultants to corporations is to actually help them apply the principles that we've learned with the social businesses to their core company, to their company. And maybe to give you a couple of examples, like the very first example of how we started working with a large corporation is the one, is the collaboration that we started with Danone, the yogurt company, where we said, okay, you know everything about yogurt, we know everything about poverty, can we work together? And we created a yogurt that was enriched with micronutrients and vitamins to sell to low-income people in Bangladesh, with the intention to solve the malnutrition problem. And so that worked, and that was one example where we felt that, you know, corporates can really do something if they just decide to take that mindset of problem solver rather than problem creator. And so now, over the last years, we've actually been doing a lot of research and also a lot of practitioner work, where we've been now working with a number of corporations and figuring out that actually not just Danone, but a number of other companies have been creating these types of initiatives. So for example, AXA, an insurance company, has said, like, we want to build insurance products that are relevant for the lower middle class in sub-Saharan Africa, because they're the ones that don't have any insurance. And because they don't have any insurance, it's so easy for them to fall entirely down into the extreme poverty if something happens, you know, if their mother gets sick or if they get sick themselves and they can't work anymore. So this is one example where AXA has actually created a whole business unit that focuses on insurance for the poor across sub-Saharan Africa. There's another company called Novartis, a big pharma company, that has said, like, we want to offer our products also at a, let's say, close, like roundabout cost price to the poor across India and also in parts of sub-Saharan Africa. And actually also provide, next to the actual products, health education, and does this again in a business model way. So these are just a couple of examples where we of course see that if a large corporation uses their power, they can scale much more quickly, and it's possible for them to, well, really make a dent into that problem rather than, let's say, one individual social entrepreneur. So that's really what we're seeing. And now I think this is a bigger trend. We just launched a program called the Unusual Pioneers earlier this year, together with the World Economic Forum. And there we have 15 companies that actually run these types of corporate social businesses, to help them exchange among each other, to help them grow their specific initiatives, and to also help them together with their executives, so their CEOs, etc., to help take those learnings to change the corporation as a whole. So what does that mean? For example, like one of the principles that we've now seen that some of the executives are now looking at is, how can we change our compensation models? So how can we ensure that our managers are not just paid for whatever the money that they make for us, but also by how they help reduce the CO2 footprint of the company, or how they may, ensure that there's more diversity in the company. And these are some of the principles that they've seen from how social businesses actually manage their day-to-day operations. So this is just, I hope this helps, Maria, but ask any further follow-up questions. I don't want to talk too long.
No, that we are getting out of time, but this Unusual Pioneer, I follow your podcast and wherever you publish in YouTube. So I think it's very interesting for the people to follow that and learn more. Mm-hmm. And I'm really looking forward to see you in person.
Exactly. I hope we can do that once, hopefully very, very soon, Maria.
Sure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Saskia. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.